see that some of the Sahaba showed that day. They became a little bit behind, and they had just come off a big victory. They had just reclaimed Mecca, and they had defeated Quraysh, and their numbers had gone up by 2,000 or 12,000 of them. And Thaqif and Hawazin, all of them together were maybe 20, 25,000. And they've always been outnumbered at least 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. Now it was barely 1 to 2. So they felt very, very comfortable with their numbers. And because of that, they almost lost up front. They suffered an early defeat in the battle itself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala documents that in Surah At-Tawbah, in the ayah of Hunayn. لَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَوَاطِنَ كَثِيرَةٍ وَيَوْمَ حُنَيْنٍ إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ. And he's saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, indeed Allah has granted you victory in many moments, and on the day of Hunayn, when you thought your numbers were impressive. Even the day where you allowed a little bit of vanity to enter your hearts because of your numbers, we still stood by you and we granted you nasr. But that you made a mistake. And because of this mistake, subhanAllah, sometimes we think that when you make a spiritual mistake, that the punishment is going to be mystic in nature. I mean, it's going to come in a way that is untangible and unmeasurable. But that is not the case. So you could say, and you wouldn't be incorrect if you said this, you would be correct if you said they had vanity, and that led to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to taking His nasr away at the beginning and then giving it back to them later. You'd be correct. But then let's take it, and that is correct, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I believe that, and I preach it. But there's another way of also seeing this that is important, and that the Prophet ﷺ saw, and the Sahaba did, and we have to as well, which is because you're vain. When you become vain, you become a little bit careless. You lose your attention to detail. You stop working as hard. Your anxiety and meticulous attention level comes down. So you miss important things. Missing those important details leads to lower performance, which leads to a loss. That makes sense? So it is actually logically connected. Vanity leads to people's demise eventually. Eventually people who are vain fail. Not just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the barakah in their lives, which is correct, but also because vanity itself, as an attitude, as a behavior, as a value, if we may, that you carry, will lead the person to make mistakes that will cause their inevitable loss or inevitable demise. And this is so. For example, hasad. We always we're taught hasad is some it's some mystic way of harming people, as in it's in the unmeasurable realm of the world. So someone saw you and saw hasad. There's this easier way to see it. If I have hasad against you, and then you will go, you must say you want to get married. And you call, and you go and you ask for some girl's hand, and then the father calls me, and then I say, well, I know something. I've always envied you, so I say something bad about you, so he doesn't give you. So your mom will say, in hasad, that's why you didn't get married. She's right. He's right. Because of hasad, you didn't get married, but not the way she thinks it happened. It's not that way. It's not where some person stared at you and then that stare ruined everything. No, it was hasad. It just happened. So yes, there's the unseen realm where things happen, but there's also logical consequences to what actually occurs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He teaches us things, both apply. Both His barakah is being removed and punishments are being decreed in a divine manner, but there's also logical sequences for everything that's happening, and we have to learn that part as Muslims, or else if we continue to live without taking the lessons from the mistakes that we made before, we will continue to make the same mistakes, and we will continue to fall into the same holes, and trip over the same barbed wires, and it'll never end. They made a mistake that day, they learned from it, they never made it again. You don't find a mistake like that ever made again by the Sahaba throughout their lives, or the Tabi'een, by the way. Futuhat would happen for the next 150 years after that moment. For 150 years, they would continue to have Futuhat, never that mistake again, because it was a painful lesson that echoed historically for at least a century after it occurred. The battle would end, and both Thaqif and Hawazin would lose everything, because they went all in, as I explained to you last time. They went all in. They brought out to this battle their children, their livestock, and their wealth. And the goal of doing that was to tell it's now or never type of thing. So no one runs. So no one ran, but they lost. after the Prophet ﷺ was able to bring back the army, the Muslim army, and he demolished the Thaqif and Hawazin, and they ran. And what was left for the Muslims was a lot of ghanaim, a lot of bounty, livestock and wealth and people. It was a whole, and of course, Thaqif and Hawazin are now negotiating, Ya Rasulullah, our wives and children, because technically in the laws of war back then, they are sabi. I mean, they will be taken as property of the winning army. So they're asking for their families back. So the Prophet ﷺ would actually, in multiple occasions, and then finally, he would offer whatever they were asking. If it was قال إن كان لي أو لبني عبد المطلب فهو لكم. Anything that is a part of what is divided for myself, for my family, is back to you. أما ما كان للناس فهو للناس. For other groups, so he would go and he would ask عليه الصلاة والسلام أتردون على هوازن نساءهم وأطفالهم أتردون على ثقيف. Would you offer back? Some people would say يا رسول الله فعل رسول الله كذا فنفعل مثل فعل رسول الله عليه الصلاة. Some people say you did it, we will do it as well. Others said no. So others said no. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام would ask them فإذن دعوهم ردوهم ولكم من الفيء مثلهم. Meaning he would tell them, give them, send the people back, and we will give you we will pay you back for what it's worth from the shares of himself and the shares of his family, alayhi salatu wasalam, and for the Muslims who stood by him. So he was able, alayhi salatu wasalam, to give back all of the human beings. And it was the first time this ever happened historically. Never had something like this happened before, where you take sabi from a sabi is basically the prisoners of war that turn into slaves, and they are sold, or the person has to come and pay for them to come back, to get them back. And even though Thaqif and Hawazin betrayed and tried, they lashed out with the intention of trying to demolish the Muslims and overtake Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ still gave them back their people with the intention of trying to guide them. So the Sahaba, some of the Sahaba, قال اللهم عليك بثقيف وعليك بهوازن. They make dua against them. They're betraying and they're now demanding. فقال اللهم اهدي ثقيفا وأتي بهم. Oh Allah, guide the tribe of Thaqif and bring them to me. Guided, and they did. They all came, by the way, guided to the Prophet ﷺ before he passed away. But all of this had to happen before that. And then the Thaqif and Hawazin started asking for some of the livestock and wealth back. فقال عليه الصلاة والسلام أما هذه فلا فإما نساءكم وأولادكم وإما. No, for that one you don't. Either you get your wives and your children, or you ask for your livestock and your wealth. You can't have both. You can't lose the war and then we give you everything back after you lost. That's not how this works. قال فنساؤنا وأطفالنا. We'll take our people back. So they did. But the amount of bounty that ended up existing after Hunayn was ridiculous. It was a huge number. Like it was a lot of wealth. And the Prophet ﷺ that day was seen يعطي عليه الصلاة والسلام عن يمينه وعن شماله. He was giving away. After people got their shares, everything that was extra he was giving away عليه الصلاة والسلام. To the point where a Bedouin man, this is a famous story that's narrated by Ahmed, and parts of it are narrated by Imam Bayhaqi. And when you put the two narrations together, you get like this story, where a man came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he took him by the back of his burda. He's wearing like a heavy, the burda, but it's heavy. It's a heavier collar than this one. He would take the Prophet ﷺ by the collar from behind, and he would twist it. He would twist it like this. He would say, "Oh Muhammad, أعطني من مال الله, لا من مالك ولا من مال أبيك." Give me from the wealth of Allah. I don't want yours or anything. I don't want anything from you or from your father. I don't want money that belongs to you. I don't want a sadaqah, like a charity from you. I want from the wealth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I accepted Islam, I am worthy. Of course, alayhi salatu would spend the entirety of this day giving away wealth. And after all that happened, this is how he's being treated, alayhi salatu wasalam. And by the way, the day of Hunayn was a very good was a tremendous example of his character, alayhi salatu wasalam. His patience, his empathy, his kindness. He never lost his temper, alayhi salatu wasalam, despite the fact that, when we studied this, there's at least 8 points during the Hunayn story that I would have, beheaded somebody. Like I would have commanded an execution to happen right there, just to teach everybody a lesson so we can continue the day with some degree of etiquette and adab. But it just kept on happening. He never, I'll show you as far as it goes for him. Like I'll show you the extent of maybe his frustration, alayhi salatu wasalam. So, there are many stories, so I'm not going to tell you all of them, I'll tell you a few of them. So he has the Prophet ﷺ by the collar of the neck, and he's twisting it, and the Prophet ﷺ's color is changing because he can't breathe, and he can't speak. فَقَالَ يَا هَذَا دَعْنِي أُعْطِكَ. Just let me go and I'll give you. Now Sahaba they see this, and of course they're about to murder this human being. And the Prophet ﷺ is pushing the back. قال دعني أعطيك. So he let him go. فقال أرضيك كذا. قال لا. I'll give you this much. Is that good? قال لا. أعطيك كذا. قال لا. He kept on offering him. The Sahaba are now getting really upset because he's rude and he's greedy. So the Prophet ﷺ takes him and he goes into his tent, his own tent. He closes the down. قال فأخذ يسترضيه. And he started spending time calming the man down and trying to get him. قال فلما وصل إلى كذا وكذا رضي. He kept on going. I'll give you this. How about I add this to that? Until he was happy. Until he was happy. فhe walked up فقال يا هذا أخرج فقل يعني للناس مقولة تخرج ما في صدورهم فإنهم قد وجدوا عليك. Go outside. Say something that was respectful. Like to make up for the bad things you were doing, because people outside are very upset with you. I don't want them to harm you. So just come out and say something nice. So he said, حاضر, I'll do that. So he walks out, this man. فقال اللهم ارحمني ومحمدا ولا ترحم معنا أحدا. Oh Allah, grant me mercy, me and Muhammad and no one else amongst But the Prophet ﷺ would smile. فقال لقد حجرت واسعا يا هذا. You have indeed made something extremely magnificent, very small. Like the rahmah of Allah encompasses everything. You've made it hajar. You made it like a rock. It's very, very small. قال ومضى الرجل. As he's giving away alayhi salam, he sees a man, a poor soul, standing there, and he's looking. He sees all of the ghanam. There was like the Prophet alayhi salam's share was ghanam yamla'u ma bayna jabalain. There was a small valley, and there was a flock of sheep, a few hundred sheep, which is a lot of money, because it's a lot of money, a lot of wealth, and it was filling the valley between two mountains. And a man was standing there, just looking at just staring at the sheep. The Prophet ﷺ was easily capable of recognizing how poor this man was and how little this man has ever owned in his life. فقال يا هذا ما تنظر. What are you looking at? فقال غنم يملأ ما بين جبلين. He said, MashaAllah, the sheep is filling a valley. MashaAllah, so much of it. فقال أتعجبك. Do you like it? فقال نعم. فقال هي لك. It's yours. فقال أتهزأ بي. What, you're going to mock me because I'm poor and I have nothing, you're going to make fun of me. That's not what the people said about your ethics, that you make fun of people. قال أتعجبك. Do you like it? فقال نعم. قال هي لك. قال فانصرف الرجل لا يلتفت خشية أن يغير كلامه. The man walked and took and moved the sheep ahead of him, wouldn't dare look back, because he was scared that maybe he looks back and he tells him, I'm just joking with you, ta'ala. So he didn't look back. قال فذهب إلى الناس. He would go to his people. يقول يا قومي آمنوا بمحمد. Listen to him. فإني أتيتكم. And I love this description. أتيتكم من عند رجل يعطي عطاء من لا يخشى الفقر. I have come to you from a man who gives as if he has no fear of poverty, as if he has no fear of being poor, or fear of tomorrow, or fear of lack of wealth. He gives as if money means nothing to him. You should go listen to this man, because he just gave me, look at what he gave me. This is enough for our tribe for years, for years to come. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As he's giving away, a man would come and say, Wallahi inna hadhihi laqismatun, or inna hadhihi laqismatun ma urida biha wajhullah. This division that's happening, this is not something that is i'dil ya Muhammad. This is not fair. Oh Muhammad, you have to be fair. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا لم أعدل فمن يعدل. If I'm not being fair, then who's being fair? فحزن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. This is the extent of his frustration. He got upset. You're telling me to i'dil, as if he's accusing him of being of cheating and not of being unjust, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إذا لم أعدل فمن يعدل. If I'm not going to be fair, then who's going to be fair? Then he said, والله لقد أوذي أخي موسى بأكثر من ذلك فصبر. Indeed, my brother Musa alayhi salam was harmed with worse. He was told worse things, and he persevered. And the scholars would say, قال هذا تواضع عليه الصلاة. He said that out of humbleness. No, Musa didn't hear as bad as he heard that day, alayhi salatu wasalam. But the Prophet alayhi salatu would use any story he had heard, any role model that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to him about, and learn from the story so that he could strengthen his own iman, as we should. We should listen to these stories so that we can have better iman, so that we can behave better in the future. So when we are being cornered or mistreated or accused, we don't lose our temper and lose our composure and then lose our faith in humanity and say things we shouldn't say, because it's just a part of being alive. He's being accused of not being just, and he was, alayhi salatu wasalam. There's a hadith and collection of Imam Ahmad and Nasa'i. It's one of my favorite hadith, where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam he's giving away wealth, and the Bedouins come and they start around him, Ya Rasulullah, atina, Ya Rasulullah, atina, give us. And there's so many of them, they're pushing and shoving, he's no longer standing in his spot anymore. Like they're kind of marching him, walking with him. And he said, okay, Fulan, a'tuhu kada, Fulan, a'tuhu. At the end, there's not much left. قال حتى اضطروه إلى عضاه كثير الشوك فانتزعت رداءه. And as they are kind of pushing and shoving, Ya Rasulullah, I want this, Ya Rasulullah, I have a family, Ya Rasulullah, I haven't had this. And they're moving and pushing. He ends up shouldering up with a tree that has thorns in it, a desert tree with thorns, and it catches a piece of his rida, of his external abaya that he wears on top, and it pulls off his rida, alayhi salam. So he's walking, and now it's left behind, and he's pointing back, Ruddu alayya ridai, just give me back my, just get me my abaya. And the people are saying, but no one's listening. Everyone's, Ya Rasulullah, give us this, Ya Rasulullah, give us this. And he's like, ردوا علي رداء, just give me back my رداء. فوالله لو كان عندي مثل هذه الجبال ذهبا لأعطيتكم وما تركت عندي منها شيئا ثم لا تجدوني بخيلا ولا كذابا ولا جبانا. I swear to you, if I had the amount of these mountains, gold and silver, I would have given it all to you. I would have left nothing to myself. You'll never find me to be cheap or stingy or fearful. Or just give me my rida. I don't want to lose my abba. Sallallahu alayhi salatu wasalam. This was the day of Hunayn for him. It doesn't end there. A really nice story I like, one of my favorite stories of Hunayn. You'll find it in the Seerah of al-Waqidi. So it doesn't have a chain of narration that's solid, but the story is there. That the Prophet ﷺ is doing the tawzi' of the ghanaim, giving out the bounty, and there's this old lady standing, just looking at him, not looking at the wealth, just looking at him. He notices her, and he keeps on working. She stays exactly where she is. She's not looking at the wealth. Usually people are looking how much ghanam, how much jima, how many camels, horses, cows, gold, whatever. They're looking for things. They want things. But she's not looking at things. She's looking at him, alayhi salam. He doesn't know her. So he looks again. She's still standing there. First, he tells one of his companions, see what the lady wants. The old lady, see what she wants. He's not saying anything. He's standing there. So they go, they speak to her, and they come back, and they say, Ya Rasulullah, taqulu anna ismaha Halima. She's saying that her name is Halima. فقال حليمة أمي, my mother. قال فذهب إليها عليه الصلاة. He goes to her عليه الصلاة والسلام فيفرش لها عباءته. He puts his rida down and he has her sit on his own. It's a sign of reverence and respect and love. If you your outer garment, if you put it down for someone to sit down on. فأجلسها ثم أنفق عليها. She's there, so he gives her wealth عليه الصلاة والسلام, and he subhanallah, how old is he now? عليه الصلاة. This is the 8th year of Hijrah, right? The 8th year of Hijrah. So how old? He was 40 at the day of his prophethood, alayhi salatu wasalam. 13 years in Mecca. That takes us to 53. 8 years later, on 61. Right? So he's beyond 60, alayhi salatu wasalam. But قال يجلس يكلمها. He sat with her, talking to her for hours. People are waiting to get their ghanaim, and he's sitting there, alayhi salatu wasalam. قال ثم أخبرته أن ابنا لها في السبي. And then she told him, one of my sons fought with Thaqif and Hawazin. قال فذهب يستعطف صاحبه. He went to the person who got his share, this man. يقول له أخي في الرضاع. He's my brother in رضاع, in breastfeeding. Can you give him back to his mother? فأبى الرجل. The man said, no, Ya Rasulullah. So the Prophet ﷺ paid from his own pocket. قال فأعتقه ثم حملها جملا بما عليه وأرسلها. And then he filled, he stacked a big camel with food and clothing, and he sent her with her daughter and her son, alayhi salatu wasalam. Loyalty. right? The loyalty. It's very inconvenient. I'm telling you right now. It's very inconvenient to run into someone who did a lot for you 25, 40, whatever years ago. Very inconvenient in life. Oh my God. It's not something you look forward to. Unless you're like the Prophet ﷺ. And then you'll find it an opportunity to show loyalty and to give back to someone who gave something to you. Because in life, you're trying to level out the playing ground. You're trying to level out your debts. You're trying to make sure that if someone did something good to you, you're doing something back. So you can keep your status, keep your time. So when someone walks in who maybe 30 years ago, so you've forgotten about this person. You haven't thought about this person in Allahu Alam how long. They're not a part of the map in your mind of who you owe things to. This person walks in and you owe them one huge debt and you haven't thought about them in years. Now they're messing up the whole thing. They have messed up the equilibrium that you have very meticulously put together in your life in terms of how much time you're going to spend here and how much money and how much attention, how much. Then this person walks in, you haven't thought about them in 30 years, you forgot that they existed and you owe them a whole lot. They're very inconvenient. And actually people can get a little bit upset that they walked into their lives. Alayhi salatu wasalam is happy. This woman took care of him, Ummi. Arda'atni. He would walk around telling people, she's my mother. She used to breastfeed me. She took care of me. He celebrated her, alayhi salatu wasalam. And we don't know, was she Muslim at the time? No, I don't know. He didn't ask the question. Nowhere in the story does it point out whether she did or she didn't give her shahada. And honestly, it doesn't matter. For the Prophet alayhi salam, it didn't matter. She was someone who took care of him. Even though she was paid, you could say, well, she was a paid nanny. No, there's no amount of money that would that would suffice for someone who took care of you as a child and looked after you and allowed you to grow up and become alayhi salatu wasalam. So we don't have examples of direct birr of the Prophet alayhi salatu to his father and mother because they both passed away very young. But we have the example of him with Halima alayhi salatu wasalam. So even though she's not his mother, he still treated her as if she was. In the midst of it all, he asked about Khalid ibn al-Walid. And I remember I told you last time, Khalid ibn al-Walid fought with the Prophet ﷺ that day until he fainted. And he fought and all these swords were breaking because of the number of people that he was pushing back. And he was wounded so many times that he bled and he fainted and a piece of nakhil fell on him and it covered him so he wasn't seen. And it was until the end of the battle that he was found and he was brought home. And he actually was quite sick. And he stayed sick for a while. And during the time of the Prophet ﷺ giving away the wealth of Hunayn, he asked about Khalid, and they told him, oh, Khalid is very, very ill, very sick. So he goes ﷺ to find him. فَإِذَا خَالِدٌ مُثْخَنٌ بِجِرَاحِهِ. Khalid is struggling with the amount of wounds that he is dealing with. Remember, this is back at a time where he didn't have medical alcohol or antibiotics or stitching, proper stitching or anything sterilized. The whole concept didn't exist. And people would die from wounds. Like a simple wound that today you could fix at home would be the demise of a human being back 1400 years ago. It's a very different time. قال فذهب إليه عليه الصلاة فإذا هو مثخن بجراحه قال فأخذ يقرأ في كفيه ثم يمسح على خالد. So the Prophet ﷺ sat beside Khalid reciting the Quran for him رقية ويمسح على خالد يقرأ بكفيه يمسح على خالد يقول خالد فقمت والله ما أدري أين كانت جراحي. He would get up عليه رضي الله and the Prophet ﷺ will tell him قم يا سيف الله, O sword of Allah, up with off your feet. And Sayyidina Khalid would get up and he would say, I don't remember exactly where my wounds were anymore. Like I have some scars but I can't remember which one actually hurt me, which one didn't, from the barakah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Long day for him, long day, long month, with the betrayal of Bakr, with Khuza'ah and Quraysh, and the need to put together the whole plan, and Hatib almost ruining it, and then getting to Mecca and having to deal with the people who wanted to fight back and neutralizing them so there would be no bloodshed, and then not having a place to stay and spending 19 days cleaning things up and signing treaties and then immediately Thaqif and Hawazin preparing themselves for war and then having to go and fight and almost losing this whole thing. Again, rebounding with the war and then having to deal with all of this ghanaim, all of this bounty and the people that wanted it. If that wasn't enough, a rumor started to circulate. It wasn't really a rumor. It was something the Ansar said. The Ansar of the Prophet ﷺ, I mean the people of Medina, the Khazraj and the Aus. They started saying, there was a term. They said, وَجَدَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ أَهْلَهُ. The Prophet ﷺ has found his family. What they meant by that is that it seems like he's chumming up to his family again, alayhi salatu wasalam. It wasn't a derogatory term, but it was implying something, and he knew. What he had done, alayhi salatu wasalam, throughout this, the time, he gave out a lot of bounty to the new Muslims, like Safwan ibn Umayyah, for example, and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, and Abu Sufyan, Sakhr ibn Harb himself, and Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl. He gave a lot of, and Hakim ibn Hizam, for example, he gave a lot of wealth to them. Like he gave them more than amongst, after everyone took their share, whatever is left that's extra, he gave a lot of it to these people. So the Ansar were seeing that, finally now that there's wealth, there's extra wealth, there's actual bounty, the Prophet ﷺ is giving it to all these people from Quraysh who accepted Islam recently. And some of them got bothered a little bit by this. That, now that we finally cashed in, now that finally worked out, where we can have some ease in our lives and some extra money, he gave it to all these people. The story actually is, Abu Sufyan, the Prophet ﷺ gave so much of the wealth to, that Abu Sufyan, and this is one of the things that strengthened, ثبت Islam. One of the things that made Abu Sufyan, hold on to Islam and fight with the Sahaba and in the different battles and die in Yarmouk as a shaheed later, is because of this, because of these things. The Quran talks about al-mu'allafati qulubuhum. In zakah can be given to al-mu'allafati qulubuhum, those who accepted Islam, but their Islam is still weak. Their deen is still weak. And they haven't, on the way to Hunayn, by the way, they would pass by a tree, Dhu Anwat it's called. And there's a tree that the Jahiliyyah people would go and they would do daba'ih under it and ask the tree for barakah and whatnot. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, can we have one of these? So he looked at them, قال أتقولون لي ما قالت بنو إسرائيل لموسى? You're going to tell me what Israel said to Musa after he split the sea? اجعل لنا إلها كما لهم آلهة. You're going to ask for قال فقطع ذو نواط. He sent the Sahaba to rip the tree out and make it wood fire because he didn't. So why are they saying that? Because a lot of them accepted Islam, but still shirk is still there. Like they have not fully ridden themselves of Jahiliyyah. Jahiliyyah still exists, and this is a part of the human experience. You don't transform overnight. Most people don't. Alhamdulillah, some people do, but most people, it's a process. You have to get rid of the old habits and bring in the new habits and get rid of the old mindsets and bring in the new ones. So alayhi sallam was still dealing with a lot of this. It still had not. So he is giving away wealth, and Abu Sufyan, he was given so much. He said, Ya Rasulullah, and the first time he would call him that, أرسل معي من يحملها. I need people to help me carry all this. فقال لا أخذتها وحدك فاحملها وحدك. You took it for yourself, you carry it yourself. And this echoed as a teaching till this day. You want wealth and money? Here's wealth and money, but you carry it. No one's carrying it for you. Not just literally as in helping you get it home, but figuratively as well. Meaning this is your hisab. You're going to be asked about this Yawm al-Qiyamah. Alone. You're going to be accountable for all of this wealth alone. So Abu Sufyan understood. And the narrations that we have is Abu Sufyan أنفقها لما عاد إلى مكة. When he got to Mecca, he gave it back all the way. He gave it as-sadaqat for himself. From the word the Prophet ﷺ told him. أخذتها وحدك فاحملها وحدك. You took it yourself. You want it for yourself. You didn't take it for others. You took it for you. You carry it. I'm not giving you. You're not going to be helped with this because you're not going to be helped with this. Figuratively also Yawm al-Qiyamah. So because he had done that, alayhi salatu wasalam, he had given away a lot of extra bounty just to these people. يُؤَلِّفُ قُلُوبَهُم. The Ansar got a little bit, they didn't like it. So some of them felt a little bit bad about it. And they said, Rasulullah wajada ahlah. Prophet ﷺ has found his family. I put for you the full narration that you find in the collection of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal fi Musnadihi. This story is beautiful, and I think it's worth sharing with you. He would call upon a few of the leaders of the Ansar, Sa'd ibn Ubadah. He would say, Ya Sa'd, أَيَقُولُ قَوْمُكَ سَمِعْتُ مَقَالَةَ قَوْمِكَ. I heard your people are saying something. فَمَا يَقُولُونَ. What are they saying exactly? So Sa'd ibn Ubadah would say this term that I told you. قد وجدت أهلك. You found your family. قال نعم. وما تقول أنت يا سعد? What do you say? فقال إنما أنا رجل من قومي. I'm just a guy from my tribe. He didn't want to say it because he felt that was rude, but he was also concerned. So he said, I'm just one of a person from my tribe. So if my tribe is saying that, he's implying that. قال نعم. اجمع لي الأنصار. I want you to gather all the Ansar for me in this area. It was a area that had a little bit of a roof, a roofed area. And you'll find these places. And they would roof it with the pieces of nakhl. It would take years to roof properly because you'd have to get one after, branch of nakhil after the other to actually make it work. So there was an area in Hunayn that was roofed. So he said, gather all the Ansar. وَلَا يَدْخُلْ مَعَكُمْ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا الْأَنصَارِ. I don't want anyone aside from the Ansar. No friends, no visitors, no guests. Only the Ansar. Only Khazraj and Aus. وَأَبُو بَكْرٍ وَعُمَرٍ. And allow Abu Bakr and Umar to be there because he wants witnesses from the other groups. قال فجمع له الأنصار. So he got the Ansar in one. And this is the only time that we have on record where the Prophet ﷺ spoke to one group, not the other. Right? That were khataba, just one group. Like he didn't speak to all of the Muslims that existed in front of him, where he took a group aside and spoke to them. And there's a lot of fiqh in that as well. That maybe for a different session. There's fiqh in the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, when needed, spoke to a specific group of people. He would do this for ladies. There was always durus and question Q&A sessions for the women specifically. But to break it down based on demographic, some form of demographic or some form of cultural or social background was not something he often did, alayhi salatu wasalam. But here in this example specifically, he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. He put the Ansar all in one place. So all of those who came to battle with him from Al-Aus and from Al-Khazraj all sat in front of him under this roofed area. فصعد المنبر عليه الصلاة والسلام. He got on the minbar. فحمد الله وأثنى عليه بالذي هو له أهل. So he praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he showed gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثم قال, and then he said, this famous khutbah, قال يا معشر الأنصار مقالة بلغتني عنكم وجدة وجدتموها في أنفسكم. O people of Ansar, there's a phrase that I have heard circulating amongst you. And jidah, meaning some degree of frustration or a little bit of upset that you have found inside yourselves against me. وَجَدْتُمُوهَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ. He didn't say against me, but it was implied in the term. So he starts. So the Ansar are looking at each other because they didn't think that the words that they had said had made it to the Prophet ﷺ's ears. They weren't trying to be rude and they had no intention of being disobedient, but they were a bit wondering. It seemed a little bit. Sometimes the shaitan finds his way in. Sometimes the nafs at a moment of weakness will find its way in. These are people who gave up everything, and they have very little. And he gave a lot of the wealth to rich Qurayshi people. So they were like, well, what's the deal? It's an opportunity for to think of why not us? He found his family, khalas. He's his relatives, the people who come from the same tribe. A moment of weakness. But they don't want him to hear it, alayhi salatu. They're too bashful and ashamed and embarrassed, and they love him, alayhi salatu, but they trust him. So he's saying this, مَقَالَةٌ بَلَغَتْنِي عَنْكُمْ. I heard the words you said and the frustration you're carrying in your heart. قَالَ فَنَظَرَ النَّاسُ بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. People start looking at each other. Who blew the whistle? Who told him? How does he know this, alayhi salatu? And they all feel ashamed. And he begins. قَالَ أَلَمْ تَكُونُوا ضُلَّالًا فَهَدَاكُمُ اللَّهُ. Were you not all astray? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you with me. فَهَدَاكُمُ اللَّهُ بِي. وَعَالَةً فُقَرَاءَ فَأَغْنَاكُمُ اللَّهُ بِي. And were you not tribes who had no financial system, no functioning financial system at all? You're all, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted you wealth through me. وَأَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ اللَّهُ بِي بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. Were you not enemies and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through me brought your hearts together? فَقَالُوا بَلْ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمَنُّ وَأَفْضَلُ. He said, of course, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet carry the full bounty and favor upon us. Of course, Allah wa rasuluhu amannu wa afdal. We fully admit this, that we were lost and we were guided through you, and we were poor and then we were granted wealth through you, and we were enemies and we have now peace through you. Of course, it's your. It sounded a little bit. He's starting heavy, alayhi salatu wasalam, but no, don't worry. فقال ألا تجيبونني يا معشر الأنصار. Why don't you speak back to me? قالوا وبماذا نجيبك يا رسول الله ولك المن والفضل علينا. How do we speak back to you? You have the full favor and bounty upon us, Ya Rasulullah. What do you mean speak back? He's saying, no, speak back to me. I want you to speak back to me. Talk back. He said, talk back? What do you mean talk back? We would never talk back to you. The favor and the bounty is from you upon us. We're not going to talk back. فقال أما والله لو شئتم لقلتم ولا صدقتم ولا صدقتم. Alas, indeed, if you wanted, you would have said the following. And if you said it, you would have been honest and truthful when you said it, and people would have believed you for saying it. Meaning it would be the truth if you said it. لَقُلْتُمْ أَتَيْتَنَا مُكَذَّبًا فَصَدَّقْنَاكَ. You came to us, no one believed in you, and we believed in you. وَمَخْذُولًا فَنَصَرْنَاكَ. And no one stood by you, and we stood by you. وَطَرِيدًا فَآوَيْنَاكَ. And you had nowhere to stay, and we gave you a home. وَعَائِلًا فَآسَيْنَاكَ. And you had no wealth, and we gave you half of what we owned. Now the Ansar are sitting down quietly. He's saying, alayhi salam, if you wanted, you would have said this, and this would have been truth. Yes, I came to you, and I had nothing as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through you, granted me strength, and granted me a home, and gave me wealth, and gave me followers through you. If you said that, you would have, I couldn't, if you wanted to talk back, you could have talked back that way. And you would have been correct. And no one could have said this is untrue, this is true. So now the Ansar are all uncomfortable. يا معشر الأنصار أوجدتم في أنفسكم على لعاعة من الدنيا تألفت بها قلوب قوم حديثي عهد بإسلام ليسلموا. O people of Ansar, have your hearts found some degree of frustration and upset over some garbage of dunya that I took and I used to strengthen the iman of people who just accepted Islam a few moments ago so they can become good Muslims? وَوَكَلْتُكُمْ إِلَىٰ إِسْلَامِكُمْ. And I depended fully on the strength of your Islam all these years. Allah. This term is so important, wallahi. Choose where you stand. Who are you? Who are you? Are you the people, or the person who wants the extra bounty to become good Muslims? Are you the Ansar? What are you? You have to choose on which side of the rails you stand. What do you want? Do you want to be served? Do you want us to serve you and to take care of you and to pat on your back and to give you free stuff and to make sure you're all... Is that what you want? Play mashallah. Or are you on this other side and you're serving with us and you're part of this group? What is it? Choose where you stand. The Prophet ﷺ in his mind is like, no, you're with me. You're on my side over here. I don't have to worry about giving you money. I have all these weak Muslims over here. I have to give them wealth. So he starts giving them wealth. Some of the strong Muslims for a moment feel a little bit dunya. So he looks at them. What is it? You want a dunya? You want a dunya? I am giving it to these people who lack Islam so they can be good Muslims. You're with me. You and I, we understand what this is about. Are you a guest to this? Or are you min Ahl al-Bayt? The word Ahl al-Bayt, by the way, refers to the Prophet ﷺ's family. But take it aside for a moment and understand how it's used socially. How it's used socially. Ahl al-Bayt means the people of the house. If you have guests coming in, Ahl al-Bayt, they're not going to eat first. They're not going to sit first. They're not going to, right? The guests are. Ahl al-Bayt are going to be standing up. Right? So there's a story we have in Syria where a guy did urs, and he would give people lahm in a piece of khubz and then give it to the guest. And then his family, he would give the piece of khubz without any meat because there was not enough meat. So he's giving the piece of bread that has the meat inside it to all the guests. And then one of his relatives comes out and says, Ya fulan, my khubz has no meat in it. فقالوا عفوا فكرتك من أهل البيت. Oh, forgive me, I thought you were amongst the people of the house. Here's meat. I thought you were on my side. I didn't know you were a guest. Go stand over there. Take the meat. I thought you were a relative of mine working with me. So the Prophet ﷺ would tell them, أَوَجَدْتُمْ, you found in your hearts a little bit over, you got upset and frustrated and a little bit disgruntled over a little bit of dunya, garbage of dunya. Lu'a'a is a word, something, forgive me, that comes out of the nose or the mouth of a human being. That's lu'a, something garbage. من الدنيا, some from dunya. تألفت بها قلوب قوم حديثي عهد بإسلام ليسلموا. I strengthened with that money the hearts of these people who just accepted Islam so they can be good Muslims. وَوَكَلْتُكُمْ إِلَى إِسْلَامِكُمْ. And I had you depend upon the strength of your Islam all these years. يَا مَعْشَرَ الْأَنصَارِ أَلَا تَرْضَوْنَ أن يذهب الناس إلى ديارهم بالشاة والبعير. Do you not, O people of Ansar, are you not satisfied that the people, they go home and they take with them the sheep and the camels and the wealth? وَتَعُودُونَ أَنْتُمْ إِلَى دِيَارِكُمْ بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ. And you go home with the Prophet. And you go home to your houses and your homes and you have with you Rasulullah alayhi sallam. Is that not enough? They're going to go home with some sheep and some camels. You're going to go home with Rasulullah alayhi sallam. Is that wasn't enough? I thought that was enough for you. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ajma'in. وترجعون برسول الله في رحالكم فالذي. And then at that point the masjid is just, you can't hear. People are sobbing. The Ansar who had said, خلاص, they had regret, they full, they were calling out, رضينا بالله برسول الله قسما وحظا ونصيبا. We are satisfied, fully satisfied and happy with the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our share, as our nasib from this dunya. From this dunya, what we get Rasulullah. We are happy, we are fully satisfied with that. رضينا برسول الله قسما وحظا ونصيبا. And then he began alayhi salatu wasalam, وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ. Oh, I swear to you by the one who has the life of Muhammad in his hands, subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَوْلَا الْهِجْرَةِ لَكُنْتُ امْرَأً مِّنَ الْأَنصَارِ. If it wasn't for the fact that I had to immigrate, I would want to be amongst the Ansar, meaning the ajr that you get, the love that Allah has for you, the blessings that have been bestowed upon you in akhirah are so great that I would love to be seen as one of you. وَاللَّهِ لَوْ سَلَكَ النَّاسُ شِعْبًا وسلكت الأنصار شعبا لسلكت شعب الأنصار. If the whole of all of humanity walked in one direction and the Ansar took another one, I'm in the direction of the Ansar. I'm going to walk with them. Allahumma arham al-Ansar. And he begins making dua for them, alayhi salatu wasalam. Oh Allah, have mercy upon the Ansar. وَأَبْنَاءَ الْأَنصَارِ, and the children of the Ansar. وَأَبْنَاءَ الْأَنصَارِ, and the grandchildren of the Ansar. فَحَتَّى سَبْعَ. And he counted 7 generations, alayhi salatu wasalam. Yes, وَأَبْنَاءِ الْأَنصَارِ. وَأَبْنَاء, just making dua for them and for their children after them. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال فبكى القوم حتى أخضلوا لحاهم. And people sat there crying until the tears were dripping from their beards. رضي الله عنهم أجمعين. After a long day in his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, he still had to do this. He still had to gather his core group and remind them of what they're here for. Remind them of what actually matters. He had to remind even his core group, alayhi salatu wasalam. Forget about those who are new, who are rude and disrespectful and greedy and want dunya and I don't know how to speak and are accusing him of things and don't leave him alone. He had to deal with all of that rudeness and discomfort, alayhi salatu wasalam. Then his own core group are asking questions that they're having, so he had to gather them all and say, what is it? Where are your minds? I encourage you to read this story so that you may choose for yourself. Where do you lie in this story? How do you see yourself? Are you a consumer? Are you a consumer of Islam and of Muslim efforts and of Islamic efforts? Or are you a contributor to it? Are you the guest? Or are you min Ahl al-Bayt? Where do you stand? How do you see yourself? Do we have to, like those who are working for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do we have to work around you? Do we have to pat you on the back and thank you and make sure that you're happy and get scared that we're going to hurt your feelings and because you're a consumer? Or are you on this side working with us? Just whatever comes, just going with the flow, trying to make things happen, fixing problems, filling gaps, serving people. You have to make a choice of who you are. Alayhi salatu wasallam was very clear on this. With the names that you know are the names of the people who were on his side of the rails, alayhi salatu wasalam. Like when you hear Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Mu'adh bin Jabal and Sa'd bin Mu'adh, you hear all these names of the Sahaba and Sahabiyat who were with him, alayhi salatu. These are the people who didn't wait to be rewarded. They weren't waiting to be praised or to be given something in return for what they were doing. They weren't, because they understood what this was about. They were on his side, alayhi salam, working with him. They were not expecting anything in return. They didn't want anything in return. And that's why their names exist today. There's 100, you'll see at the end of the Seerah, I'm going to tell you there's 100,000 Muslims in front of him. You can maybe count 100 names, maybe, if you're, mashallah, if you're amazing. And if you're absolutely on board, you can go through 100 names of ashab, companions that you know. There's 100,000. 1 out of 1,000 people, who lived with him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Why? Because that is usually the percentage. The consumers and the contributors, that's usually what it is. For every 1,000 people who are entitled, who walk and they want this and they expect this, and why isn't this happening, and who's taking care of this, and why is this a problem not being solved, and who is taking. For 1,000 of those, you have one person who's actually carrying the burden, walking around, trying to make a difference, trying to change, not complaining about stuff, but just trying to fix it. Ahlul Bayt. He would use this term, alayhi salatu wasalam, a lot. Salman al-Farisi, right? He came from a different country. Salman minna Ahlul Bayt, he would say. He's amongst us. Why? Because Salman didn't feel like a foreigner. He didn't act like a foreigner. He wasn't a foreign Muslim. Salman was Ahlul Bayt. He was there working with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam day and night. He was waiting for nothing in return. Even though he's not even Arab, at the time, like now, Islam is very, alhamdulillah, very multicultural and multiracial. But back then it was mostly Arab. So as a Persian man, he kind of stood out, radiallahu anhu. He kind of stood out, but he didn't act like it because he understood where his role lied. He wasn't a consumer, he was a participant, he was a contributor. It's a beautiful thing, and this is important. You have to have people around you that you can, takiluhum ila imanihim, that you can just have them depend on their iman. You don't need to keep on catering to their needs. You don't need to keep on clapping for them, applauding for them, making sure that they're fulfilled and happy, and worrying about their feelings, and worrying about their perception, and worrying if they're going to still show up the next day if you don't say this or if you say that. It's hard to be around people who you have to do that with all the time. Alayhi salatu wasalam had built a core group who he didn't have to do that with. But for a moment in Hunayn, especially the younger ones, so much dunya was being distributed, they had a moment of weakness that he beautifully corrected, alayhi salatu wasalam. I can talk about this story, wallahi, for another hour. I ask you to contemplate how he began it. He is not interested, alayhi salam. He's not saying, you owe me. No. He's like, no, you don't owe me. If you said that you came to us with nothing, you would have been correct. So, but what he tried to establish is there's some equilibrium here. I came to you with nothing and you stood by me. But I came to you and you had nothing and now you have something. We grew together. Don't forget about dunya. We're together in this. Just like you supported me, I supported you. Just like you helped me, I helped you. And that's why we are one. So don't act like you're a guest. Don't act like you need me to give you. You do this all. You're sitting at your home and you have your brother there and a guest. تكرم الضيف. And you're going to expect your brother to do the same. Expect your kids to take care of the guests. You're not going to expect them to sit there as if they're guests. Right? You have to raise them so they understand that this is your job when someone comes to the house. The Prophet ﷺ, these were his people. These were Ahlul Bayt ﷺ. Who are you? And where do you fall in all of this? Years 8, 9, and 10, I have to talk quickly about this important trend that occurred. Just because if I don't talk about it now, I'll forget. Within these years, 8, 9, and 10, so around Fatah Makkah, and then after, until his almost right before he passed away, a few months, around Hijjat al-Wada, a trend began of betrayals. Meaning the Prophet ﷺ, after he had signed all these treaties with the people around him, and Quraysh allowed after Hudaybiyah for that to happen, and he had conquered, reclaimed Mecca, and after Khaybar, he was very powerful. Like his army was much stronger. He had, he claimed a lot of areas. So there was a lot of envy and a lot of disgruntlement that was growing and being built up in Arabia. So smaller tribes that had treaties with him, ﷺ, would often go and betray and murder Muslims and steal their wealth, following the ways of behavior of Jahiliyyah. In Jahiliyyah, that's how it happened. You raided your neighbor, and then next month your neighbor raided you, and this was the way things happened, and it was a lot of chaos. And the Prophet ﷺ was trying to bring to a nomad land some degree of civilization, like some law and order to keep people living, to allow people to actually function, for society to thrive. You need some laws. But the Arabs around him, even those who had signed the treaties, continued to do this, and especially those who were still mushrik, who were very threatened by how widespread Islam had become and how the asnam on the Kaaba had fallen. See, once the asnam came down, now I have to take it back to the beginning of Seerah, meaning 2 years ago when I started this fourth iteration of Seerah, I told you that the reason that you had the asnam on the Kaaba, because it served as a geopolitical insurance policy. It allowed things to work. It allowed there was some order because of them. Quraysh kept your sanam in front of the Kaaba or on top of the Kaaba, and you protected the rihlat al-shita wal-sayf. The caravans going up and down to Damascus and down to Yemen were going to be protected by the tribes who had their asnam there, right? Because there was an agreement. If they betray, they lose their idol is destroyed and removed, and that is they lose their status amongst the Arab. And if they don't get their sanam where they want, then they start raiding. And sometimes Quraysh are like, no, this tribe is too weak. It's not worth. We only have so much space here. Get rid of their sanam, and then just kick them out of the land. To take an army and kick them out. They would do this sometimes. Like, you're too weak. Your idol is not worth being on the Kaaba. You're not strong enough to threaten us. I'm going to get rid of you altogether. They did this all the time. So when the asnam fell, that order was no longer there, and the alayhi sallam was trying to obviously bring a different type of law and order to the land, but the Arabs didn't like it, especially the mushrikeen. So over 26 to 27 times, they would betray the Muslims, which led to Surah At-Tawbah being revealed. So if you read Surah At-Tawbah at the beginning of it, the surah that this new bill that they're putting out is trying to deny us our right to recite or to talk about, is because people read it and they find it to be heavy or difficult. You have to understand the context of these verses. You have to understand the context of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the beginning of Surah At-Tawbah. روح لقدام ماما قدام روح لقدام الله المستعان. I do this as a separate lecture every once in a while. I'm not going to do it here. But it's important to understand the context of the first maybe 4 or 5 pages with the Tawbah. I plan, inshallah, of doing like a series of tafsir of Tawbah specifically, this Surah At-Tawbah, just to make sure that no one feels the need to shy away from these verses, to hide them, or to not share them, or to feel that the propaganda that was used against the surah like this is absolutely based on full ignorance of what it's talking about. The surah this first 2 pages are filled with, the surah is called Tawbah, first of all, repentance, right? And the surah is filled with فَإِن تَابُوا وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَإِن تَابُوا وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ. If they repent, if they stop doing this, then... But the beginning of the surah was heavy. بَرَاءَةٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى الَّذِينَ عَاهَدتُّم مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. That's it. All the treaties that are between you and these tribes that are surrounding your area that are mushrik, there's no treaties anymore. They have 4 months. Either they accept Islam and they fall under the law and order of the land, or they leave. They go somewhere else. They have 4 months to do it. They have 4 months to figure out what they want to do. They can either join or leave. They can't be. Why? Because you can't be betrayed 20 plus times and keep on. What was the Prophet ﷺ doing? Every time he got betrayed, he would gather them, pay the diya, he signed the treaty, talk to the people. We can't keep on doing this, because that was his way. ﷺ. And the Quran came and said, nope, no more. That's it. 4 months. Either you stay or you leave. We're done. And even then, وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ. And even after the 4 months, if one of the mushrikeen comes and asks for your protection, grant them your protection. حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ. Show him what the deen is. If he accepts it, أهلا وسهلا. If not, then get him ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنَهُ. Then allow them to reach wherever a safe place is for them, so they can leave. Because the goal was not to murder these people, but it was to neutralize the ongoing threat that they caused. So when you read the first 2 pages of Surah At-Tawbah, knowing what Surah At-Tawbah, these 2 pages was responding to, they're very easy to understand. If you don't know what they're responding to, then it sounds like the Prophet is being told to declare war upon everyone around him, and that's not the case. If it was, then we would have seen that in the seerah of the Prophet. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this happened, just as our backside is happening. It takes us to the... there's only 2 more stories left in the seerah of the Prophet. There's the Battle of Tabuk, there's Hajjat al-Wada', and then there's his glorified passing. The Battle of Tabuk is the last battle on record that he participated in. It happened in the 10th year, or the 9th year of Hijrah. Some scholars say it happened in the 10th year, right before Hajjat al-Wada'. Some say it was in 9. There's some difference of opinion here. It's not. What we do know is after Fatah Makkah, after a lot of these tribes, after the 4 months, the grace period for the tribes to move, they were moved. Khaybar had fallen already. Hunayn had happened, so Taqif and Hawazin had accepted Islam at that point, and there was no problem. The Prophet ﷺ had to put a siege around Ta'if for a while before they completely submitted. But now you had Mecca, you had Ta'if, you had Khaybar, you had Medina, you had all these. Islam now was an actual country. It wasn't just a city, it was a country, and had a lot of land. I remember I told you in the northern part of Arabia, there are two blockades. There are the Ghasasina and the Manadhira. Right? The Ghasasina are the ones who are the west kingdom of Arabs who had alliances with the Romans. And the Manadhira are the east kingdom that had alliances with the Persians. And they had closed off you couldn't leave Arabia to the north without going through them. Taxations applied, right? So the Arabs always paid the Ghasasina and the Manadhira taxation every time they moved. It was horrible jamatic. You're talking about customs that were absolutely ridiculous based on what the empires wanted. So the Arabs were, by design, going to stay poor all their lives, because only for trade to work, they had to be able to go back to forth into Damascus or to Erbil or to Mosul or to Baghdad. They had to be able to move, and they weren't able to move. And if they did, the customs applied to everything that they owned, all the goods, so they didn't really make a lot of money. Enough for Quraysh to become rich, because Quraysh had a lot of the alliances. But now, with all that gone, the law and order that once kept the status quo there was gone. So the Ghasasina now were not going to make their taxation anymore. The Arabs wouldn't pay. Because I was like, we paid because Quraysh had our sanam and everything was, now none of this exists, so we're not paying you anything. Well, then we're not going to let you through. So they start not using that route. So they found other routes. It's causing havoc. It's causing rebellion. They're losing money. They're losing their treaties with the tribes. Absolute nightmare. So the Ghasasina are like, this is not going to work. It's all money at the end. Anyone who tells you it's anything but money either is lying to you because they're making money and they don't want you to know, or they don't know what's actually happening. It's always comes down to money at the end. Unfortunately, corruption comes through money, and it always has, and always will. Ghasasina, their problem with the Prophet ﷺ was not. He had disrupted the status quo that they were making money off. They were benefiting from. So they spoke to the Romans, and they asked for help. The Romans were very hesitant because their last experience in Mu'tah did not go very well. So it took a while before the Ghasasina were able to get some support from the Romans to start putting an army together. Their army was being built over 35,000 people, and the plan was to march towards Medina. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, we're not going to let them make it here. We have to go and meet them up in the north. We can't let them come near us. They can't enter here. He had a strategy, that I'll share with you, inshallah, next week. But the idea was that he was going to go meet them at the north. Now, before you get worried and anxious, no war actually happened. The Battle of Tabuk, we call it a battle, but no battle happened. Because at the time he arrived in the north, the Ghasasina and the Romans fought amongst each other because of what happened in Mu'tah before. They got into disagreements, and platoons left, and this leader left. And by the time he got there, no one was there. There was no army to fight, alayhi salam. And he just put his muaskar, he just camped there to show strength, alayhi salam. And actually bought him Tabuk. Tabuk became a part of the Islamic So this actually gained him more strength instead of taking something away from him. But since that's the ending, now we can tell you about the actual story, because the story is what matters, not the outcome of it. It was horrible timing. It was the worst timing imaginable. It was August. I grew up in Mecca, in Medina. You don't leave the house from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in July or August ever, unless you want to die. You don't want to live anymore, so you go stand out for a few seconds and make dua, and you'll be dead. Or take an egg and open it on your father's car so you can have scrambled eggs. My dad used to have a Caprice, an old Chevrolet, and it was metal. And in the day, if my dad forgot something in the car and to send me out to get it for him, I had to take with me like a towel. Because if I made the mistake and touched the metal, it would second-degree burn in your hand. I kid you not. And if you lived in the Middle East, you know this. So people, it's August. They are coming off 2 wars. So they haven't been home working. They haven't been trading. Nothing has been going on. There's no money. There's no wealth. This is right before the time where the tamar ripens. So it's right before they're going to make their annual income. So they don't want to be somewhere else. They want to be here so they can sell it and they can make some money. The timing is horrible. It's not the right time for it. Can we wait just a month? No, we can't. We leave now. Prophet ﷺ gave, and he didn't لم يواري رسول الله عليه الصلاة. He always tells people, we're going to go. Well, he doesn't tell them where they're going. And then he hints in one direction. Then he hints in another direction. Then he goes in a third direction. Every time, even Fatah Makkah, I told you the same thing. For Tabuk, no muwara, nothing. He said, we're going north. We're going to fight the Romans. Why? Because it's 1,000 kilometers. And you need to know beforehand. So I'll continue the story inshallah next week. So